Welcome to We Need to Talk, where we try to figure out the meaning of life and how to reduce dissatisfaction. In this episode, we're diving into some really personal, deep topics. For example, how if parents do not understand their unconscious mind, they can project their dreams onto their children and force their kids to live out the adventure that they never lived out themselves. We also talk about how we ourselves have lost control of our own shadow and manifested violent behavior that has really hurt somebody physically. We also discuss how if men want to understand their unconscious mind, they need to have this ability to relate to the feminine, because the unconscious mind is actually symbolized as something feminine. And finally, also, we discuss success and self-sabotage, and how once you've succeeded at something, you kind of feel the need to sabotage yourself and bring yourself down again. So if you want to learn about that, listen to the end of this episode. Enjoy the episode and don't forget to subscribe. Let's go.
Do you think the shadow also has to do like with the unlived parts of others, where you project that onto something good?
Can you
Because
give
I
an
read
example?
it a bit in this book where if you do not integrate your shadow as a parent, chances are you will pass them on to like three more generations to come. So if your parents have an unlived life due to not facing their own shadows, then there might be a chance that thanks to them, you have to live their unlived lives, which is not fun. It's pretty weird. I don't know if
So
this makes sense.
let's so they would try and project onto you,
They're unlived.
and the unlived life is a negative trait though to them.
Well, that's the
Oh
thing. It can
no.
also be positive.
Yeah, right. It can be just any trait that is repressed.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah, like maybe if your parents were it was unacceptable for your parents to be creative, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
So they never manifested their artistic endeavors, but then they tried to project it onto you.
Yeah.
That could be a case,
Oh,
right?
dude, this is not fun. I'm realizing like I have that. I think told you one part of it about my parents, where my dad wasn't allowed to play soccer. So what he did, he became a soccer trainer when I played, and he kind of forced me to continue, even though I wanted to do gymnastics. And I have the feeling like when I have a kid, I want them to do my unlived life of gymnastics, which is not gonna like that's just as bad, even worse. So I'm like, fuck, that sucks.
Mm.
But it's very good. And this is like somewhat innocent. I mean, yeah, it's sad that I missed out, but it's not the end of the world. But this can carry on a very, very long way if it's severe.
Yes. Because what's kind of occurring is that the adult is imposing a lifestyle onto the child. So the child is being repressed in some sense because the child is not voluntarily acting it out. So there will be something going on within the child that's not good.
Yeah.
It's not because it's not being allowed to be its natural self.
Mm-hmm.
So there will be some sort of shadow building up inside, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Mm.
I read other examples in the book too, where there was a marriage, and this is also very important if parents listen to this. Like if you have kids and they move out of the home, and you would initially sometimes like funnel your or channel your negative shadow sides towards your kids, which is not a good thing. But then if they move out of home, it might happen that especially if a father would or a husband would channel all of that towards the wife, and that's when you can have like very shitty breakups and divorces. And there was a very clear example of this where this is also bad, where the husband would always act towards the pet like the dog. Then the dog died, and he just really started resenting his own wife. And that was like a pure shadow acting of him.
Damn.
Yeah. So
What? So
it's
where his, let's say, what was the trait that was being repressed? You know?
it might just be like some sort of negative energy building up. I don't know exactly what it is, but I know it acted itself outwards in violence. I don't know, like there must have been a lack of indeed appreciating the shadow side. I don't know exactly what it was. To know it all.
Maybe it was just some dissatisfaction with life that was repressed and then
Yeah.
boiling up because
Mm-hmm.
it's draining you and it's irritating you,
Yeah.
and eventually it unloads in some impulsive violence.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
But I think the moral of this is that if you have a parent and you have kids, like you need to have integrated your shadow because it will otherwise just pass on to your kids. And then second, I think another example here was if you're a parent or whatever, and you have a job but you lose it, you can the creativity you let out on your job, you will mirror that in destructiveness in your own household, and that will be really toxic. And that might happen at retirement or losing a job or whatever. But it's just something to be really, really cautious about when you enter such a situation.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think I can relate to that myself actually with how my parents might have influenced my shadow trait. I'm not very assertive naturally. And I think it's because I have been taught to follow the rules or try to stick to the rules and not sort of not cause conflict, let's say. It's always important to be good, to be praised and abide by the rules. So, and I think that is because my parents taught me that, because they thought too much assertiveness is bad. Asserting yourself and, sort of engaging in sort of confronting negotiations or conflicts is bad. So I absorbed that from them then, and now I struggle to be confronting and very assertive, which is not good, really not good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and just like a very basic example of the shadow is I had these recurring mental images of what I would do to somebody because I was a bit resentful towards them, and they were like sadistic, brutal images of me doing something to this person. And it's really terrifying because I noticed how close I came to acting it out because it was just boiling within me. And I talked to the person then and sorted it out, and that alleviated the tension. But it was really frightening. And when you know that, when you realize how much you can hurt somebody, it makes you walk around with more respect for yourself, and you walk around heavier. And I think that's why it makes you more attractive also.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like JP says, right? You'll be someone to contend with.
Yeah.
And I only experienced that after an instance, I think I told. I was like 13 years old and I'd never been in a fight. But my dad has been in a fight, and he like a lot when he was young. And he would always tell me about it. And I always like admired him because I was like, I'm totally not like that, but I never really got myself into situations because he always told me like, yeah, I did that, but it's not good. But I think I secretly hoped to be in situations. So when I was like, we were at a birthday party and we were just playing soccer, and I was just with my sisters and two friends, and we were about to leave, and then three kids like same age, they came up to me, and I was just about to leave with my bike, and they just hold onto my bike, and I was like, I asked them like three times, like, "Yo, okay, you just let me go. Like, I am not gonna do anything." They're like very childish, and then like very funnily, I just stepped off my bike and just got like, well, he blacked out and I blacked out like a daze. Like I just lost my conscience in that sense, and I think that is when me as like a 13-year-old didn't control my shadow because I just went ham at him, and I saw him like with how to say that, like headbands, like
Bandage.
bandages, some weeks later. So I don't fully know what happened, but the moral is that I apparently I had this desire and ability to somewhat mess someone up, and I just didn't know from myself. But whenever I would now encounter such a situation or get close to it, I'm like, I know what I can do to someone, so I also know what someone else can do, most likely, if they don't have it under control. And it makes you indeed feel more respect in yourself and be at least be able to avoid such conflict too. And
I think that's so you basically just mushed this guy.
yeah,
Damn. I can
Yeah.
relate to that. I mean, I don't, dude. When you get into that zone of you release your aggression, especially I think young men, they turn into animals. Like you're not a human anymore. You turn from what are you doing? You're annoying me to I want to kill you. Like
yeah,
that's what it is. It's like, and I think that's what I mean. Why street fights just don't end well is it's not necessarily like who gets knocked out first, but it's like I want to kill you at the moment. It's this aggression, and I think I've had that bottled in me for a while because I have some dark stuff or whatever, and I've never released it, but I could, and I should probably find a way to. I think I have found ways to like reduce the risk of manifesting it. But I once mushed a guy's nose. He was annoying me. I took him in a headlock and lost it and just like went bam, 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 bam into his nose, and he got a bloody nose. And then I was so afraid of what I had done, I ran home. I mean, I was like 12 or 13 or so.
Dude.
So it wasn't recently, thankfully.
Oh my god. Yeah, I had the same. Like I scared myself and just ran away. I was like, what just happened?
You're like, what have I just done?
Yeah.
It's like you don't know who you were.
Yeah. But
Cool.
this is an awesome loop to why the movie Fight Club is so enticing.
Yeah.
Because I think the main narrative, I don't know the first name, but the second guy, Tyler Durden, is a very, very solid representation of the shadow side of the initial guy. Do you know his name?
No.
Okay. Yeah, whatever. So immediately that movie, he basically creates, spoiler, he creates his own shadow side to kind of act out all the behaviors he desired but never dared to act out. And in order to do so, he really has to create a second person or second personality because he's too afraid to confront those darker sides within himself. And you'll see how destructive it eventually becomes, and how in the end, again, they marry each other. The ideas marry because he is conscious of it, and then he integrates the part. And that is one of the movies I can just watch over and over again, because there is some very enticing, violent parts about the fighting that is like an awesome, that's probably toxic, but it's a very awesome part of masculinity, which is just lost nowadays.
It's like, dude, I've had a thought like, where's the closest fight club for me to join? That's like what I thought after watching it. It's like Tyler, the guy, basically the shadow or the representation of everything this protagonist wanted to be, is like super good looking, good at fighting, I think, good
hella
with girls.
assertive.
Yeah, hella relaxed, outgoing and assertive, and very good with girls.
Yeah.
That's sort of it. And in the end, I mean, does he integrate him in the end? Well, he realizes it's him.
Yeah.
Well, he like blasts half of his brain out.
Yeah, because he realizes it's not him, it's himself. Yeah.
And then the city explodes, but I don't know what that means. Yeah, it's big spoilers. So, dude, I'm glad you said it because I would not have remembered to say.
Yeah.
And also, okay, now some benefits. Otherwise, I think, okay, we're going like, this is such a long episode, but I feel like I'm less judgmental of people. Like I'm more open to alternative ways of life because I understand like people are so different, and they are, they have sexual urges. They have they want to be empathetic. They want, they are sad. They are lonely. They are afraid. They are intimidated. They are all of these things. And I can like relate to these emotions, and I don't judge them in and box them in. I just sort of like understand them. And I see a lot of people, others don't understand it, or they think like, oh my God, what a weirdo. But I just feel like
Yeah.
this guy is just, or this girl is just being themselves,
Yeah, and I think
Really.
that's so fundamental, because once you understand, only then it is that you can act out of like genuine empathy. And I don't know if it's unconditional love, but it is like some sort of indeed forgiveness or love, which is just way more constructive and collaborative in approaching people when you're faced with like shitty situations or people just being down, or like it's very, very helpful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the world essentially depends on whether people integrate their shadow, because
Hmm.
the more integrated, the more understanding and accepting, or let's say less judgmental, like
Hmm.
toxically judgmental people will become. I think, I hypothesize.
Hmm.
So one thing I just want to, like, a cool idea is like, how do you tell, how do you detect if someone has a dense dark shadow? And I've got some advice here. It's
Oh.
like, if they're super rigid in their beliefs and ways of life and super judgmental, this person has a dark shadow, because they have this really static, rigid identity, and there's darkness, there's a big shadow behind that. And some people, Dan Pena, I bet his shadow, dude. If you don't know who Dan
Just
Pena is, he's
crushed
like
him.
a motivational, he's American, I think American motivational speaker. He calls himself the $1 billion man. He's basically just like a hardliner who just gives public speaking sort of presentations, and just smashes and bashes and is really harsh in his tone. And someone like him, I bet he has a really dark shadow, unless he's acting all the time. But I bet, like, in regards to sort of emotions, and I don't know what kind of trauma this guy's been through, but I think it's pretty
Yeah.
dark.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Man, there's so many like realizations coming through though, because in order to really, as a man, to integrate shadow side, you just need some sort of more feminine qualities. Like you need to be more sensitive to yourself. You need a high level of radical honesty towards yourself, and thereby you will eventually also create things like empathy. And I think most of them are more associated with women, all of those traits. And that could just steer guys away from even taking it serious, which is super harmful. So I'm just like trying to grab my head around how
That's
that works.
Dude, that's really interesting, because the unconscious is actually represented as something feminine. And it's because the feminine is the creator of all things.
Mm.
All humans are born out of a woman, believe it or not. And that's why it is represented as feminine. And the unconscious is, everything where, all these urges, these instincts, they arise from, they are born out of the unconscious. That's why it's connected. But also the anima, so the feminine traits of a man, or is also equated with the man's relationship to the unconscious, or really anything. It's the sense making, it's the relating to anything. And if the man has a let's say a distorted or a weak or a bad relationship with the feminine, he probably also has a bad relationship with his unconscious mind, and is therefore, like you said, well, you need that feminine energy, or not energy, it's that ability to relate to the feminine, in order to really integrate the unconscious mind, I would say.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll dive into the anima in
Hmm.
another topic. um yes. And also somebody like, I don't want to like make this political or anything, but I think somebody like Donald Trump probably also has a pretty dense shadow who somebody, I don't know if he's acting or not. If he's acting, then it's probably different. But if he's literally the way he presents himself in his, in his, when he speaks
Mm.
publicly, when he says like, sort of summarize, I'm good and you're bad. Like that's the most sort of childish kind of self-identification of like superiority. Like, there's some pretty dark stuff behind that.
Well,
Some suppressed
like
self.
on the other hand, he's very unfiltered. So in that sense, I'm like this. I don't know if he's like in that sense cultured, where he left all those bad things. I don't know if he even has worse traits that he doesn't show. It's like then he's like very bad, like worse off. So I don't know.
He looks like a guy who does not have a developed anima, who does not have a very
Mm,
developed
no.
developed like feminine side to himself, and therefore I suspect his
Mm,
relationship to his unconscious sort of his body,
yeah,
his sort of natural authentic self is
yeah,
probably questionable. But I do understand what you mean. Yeah, if he's unfiltered, he's probably like, if he has
mm,
sort of a thought, he's just going to speak it without thinking twice, and that might maybe he has a developed kind of masculinity, but then
yeah,
a very underdeveloped femininity. And
yeah, yeah. I don't
one needs
know.
to yeah,
No, go for it.
one needs to understand, just because masculinity is connected with male and femininity with female, it's not the same. Femininity is actually a separate concept of itself that is connected to creation, nurturing, empathy. It's not like that's woman, that's a woman. No, 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 no. It's femininity. It is something in itself. So it's not like we're not getting here all sexist or anything like that. It's not. Yeah. But go ahead.
Mhm. No, it's good. It's good.
Cool.
I just have like some cool quotes from the book to go by.
Go for it.
One of the most awesome one I found is the question Carl Jung would ask to his colleagues was like, "Oh, did you have any terrible successes lately?" Because the whole premise within the shadow is that if you create something, you also destruct something, and if you have like a very good high, like a good success, you will eventually find that homeostasis by acting out some sort of shadow side, whether that is unintended or whether it's a symbolical, intentional ritual you've done to integrate it. And for me personally, I noticed this like this is very weird, but if I would have like an amazing week, I would like allow myself to indulge in like very shitty destructive behavior of which I know they're bad, and like I would still be fine with that, but that's like some sort of minor rather innocent way I would let my shadow even with my ego. But it can be destructive if you let that out into the outer world. But I don't know if you also experienced that.
Yeah, I feel like if I get, let's say, if I'm successful in something, people praise me. I do something really well. I notice that my I notice how the shadow becomes darker, because I'm like, I'm successful, I'm this, and this unsuccessful person I am not. So it becomes, and it doesn't feel good. I notice it's not good what's happening when that identity is encouraged. I would say like that. But I have noticed that peaks are they're very often accompanied by declines, because you can't obviously sustain a peak, and it needs to be balanced out then afterwards. So, and that
Yeah.
actually kind of sucks, because comparatively, I actually made the video on this today on my other channel, Spartans, is when you reach a peak, you decline. And actually that decline feels so bad that even though you're returning to your baseline level, which is like feels good on average, that decline actually throws you into a bad state, because you compare it to that previous peak, and that just makes it feel bad. And it's this volatile up and down, which is actually not that good. It's better to just stay around this average baseline.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think where in the book they describe, you see this exemplified with or amplified for very creative people, and he named like Picasso or some other guys who are like highly creative. In their personal life, they would have like there'd be a great mass like addicted to all kind of things, or like indulging in all kind of destructive orgies, or like just weird things. Um, and yeah, it's like it very much signifies how important it is that if you build something and you create in that way, that yeah, you need to be very careful about the period after that, because your unconscious will catch up with you. So if you're not aware of that, you're just done.
But
Yeah.
is that based then on that if you're successful, the shadow becomes darker or what? And it tries to.
So in the book, he really describes how the creative process, which doesn't have to be like painting creative, like just building something, that's his creation. It is always accompanied by destroying or destructing something. And there's quotes like "to act is to sin," like those kind of things. Um, I don't fully grasp the whole concept yet, but I have at least experienced it myself as well, and it does resonate with the book. Where, for example, last week Thursday, I had an amazing workshop, Extraordinary Life Zurich, on student loneliness, and I was like super happy. And then, then I would just get shit faced. I'm like, why? It's just, why do I do that? It's just like to like balance out and like level. I'm like, I can find other ways to honor my shadow side, I guess. But it's still a bit of a vague concept, that part. Like, I think that needs more
Dude, I
investigation.
know that. I can totally relate to that. After I feel really good, I feel like I need to pull myself back again into
Yeah,
like I need to, I sort of,
downgrade.
I synthesize, I create this situation that makes me feel bad then or something. Like,
Yeah,
it's really weird.
yeah, but I always thought that was more of a conscious thing where I would do that because I feel like I don't deserve the up. So I'm like, okay, I'm not entitled to this, so I shouldn't feel like this, so I don't do it. But this makes more sense because it would happen whether I really wanted or not. So it's like it's still a matter of integrating and then finding more healthy private ways to act out these shadow sides. And that is where he talks about whenever someone would have, like a colleague of him would have a good success, they would have to put out the garbage for the next week. And that was like a symbolic act where they would also need to reflect and throw out their own personal garbage. And in that way, they would act out the shadow. I don't know if that would really work. They state in the book that symbolically acting it out is the same as acting out in a violent, excessive way. But that's something to really experiment with. So finding a ritual for yourself where you kind of destroy something, I think that would be really cool to just give it a shot.
Wait, so Carl Jung forced his employees to throw out the trash after success.
I think it was indeed colleagues or like a couple he knew, like something like that. Yeah, it was funny. It was very innocent. But I mean, if that works, because he said the unconscious can't distinguish whether it is actually something out there and bad or whether it's something private and symbolic.
Dude, this is actually something seriously cool and good to know, and something we need to look into, because this is, whilst you're saying this, a lot of things are clicking within me. Like, dude, there's something in this. Seriously. It's like, why, like, it's totally there, that need to do something like self-harming after a success. Like, you need to ground yourself again, or like, it's yeah, when you said, do I deserve this, I think there's something in there too. You feel like you don't want to allow the success for yourself, like you don't deserve it in some way.
Mhm.
Oh, we need to look into that.
Yeah, because here he gives other examples where they symbolically outed, or no, whether they factually outed it, acted it out. And that was like in some cultures they had the boogeyman,
Yeah.
and they would just appoint someone throughout the year and they would like honor him the whole year. They would like carry him everywhere. He would get like virgins, all food, like everything was organized. And then the last day, they would just like burn him, like just burn him straight up alive, and they're just like make a massive celebration out of that. And that was like their way of acting with their shadow side. It's like that's fucked up. So there must be more healthy ways to cope with this.
Dude, but that's also something really important with psychology. I mean, you mentioned it now. The acting out something symbolic, like a ritual, kind of satisfies the unconscious mind. It is like with taking out the garbage, dude.
Yeah, I'm gonna try this soon, like making bonfire and like writing down things about myself and just getting it out there.
Dude.
I think that would be, if you can do that like once, like frequently, once a month or something, that would be a cool ritual, rather innocent. Like, I think that would serve.
Dude, that's awesome. I should try that out. Seriously, dude, I'm gonna look up at these rituals and see, spark the tribal Henry. See how that goes. Dude, that's so awesome.
Oh, one last quote I really want to add is that, and this is more related to physics, because there is such energy in this shadow side, the equation of, I think this might be Newton, that like energy can't be destroyed, only transmuted or transformed. That is like, once again, a fundamental reason why to go into it. Like, it's going to be there. Just really find the energy and use it towards something creative. And they accompany it with another sentence which says you have to it says you have to steer away from the Garden of Eden whilst restoring the heavenly Jerusalem. I don't know to what extent you know more about this story, but it's, man, it just hit me, this line. I was like, it sounds so cool. You have to unify them. But I don't know if people would make any of that.
I mean, I don't know much about, I mean, I know the Garden of Eden is sort of like heaven or perfection.
Yes.
But the city of Jerusalem?
Yes. So that's hell. So the
Is
other
it? I don't know if that's hell, dude.
Okay, so the
That's
other
where Jesus was born.
Okay, they said restore heavenly Jerusalem. Okay, I'm gonna find another sense that makes more sense. They say you go to heaven for form, to hell for energy, and you marry those. That's cool.
That is cool. Well, that's the same idea as Jung said. If a tree is to grow to heaven, its roots must reach to hell.
Mm-hmm.
And that's again that unifying polar opposites.
Yeah. I think this is from Faust as well.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, there's that Mephistopheles, the devil.
Yes.
But there's one thing I wanted to say. Dude, something, this is kind of unrelated, but really hit me. So do you know Paradise Lost?
No.
It's basically, Jordan Peterson's referred to it several times. It's like, it's considered the greatest poem of English literature. It's written by John Milton, and it's really difficult. I haven't read it, but I watched a lecture on it, and a guy said something extremely awesome. So it was written, I think, in the 1600, I think 1600s, early 1600s. In the poem, John Milton, good old John, he literally writes out the process of trying to, it's about the Garden of Eden. It's basically beginning like when it's the story of the Garden of Eden, but it's like really long and sort of elaborated. And in the beginning, John calls upon the spirit that helped humans write the Bible to help him write the poem. That hit me. Because what I thought, if John can do it, so can I. Because I was thinking that I think people wrote the Bible with the help of the unconscious. It was telling them something, like they were listening to them, and it was sort of arising out into their it's also what artists do. They listen to their unconscious and then produce the message onto the piece of art. And dude, you can summon the spirit or something that helped write the Bible into something for your own life. insane. And he wrote, and then John went to go and write this book, this poem that is considered the greatest poem of English literature. And people even think it replaced the Bible because it's so strong.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
That's insane.
Wow.
And this dude lived like 500 years ago. I mean, you always think the Bible, oh, that's like archaic, it's ancient. This dude was 500 years. I mean, comparatively, it's, you know.
Wow.
So I think we should start
It's
summoning.
cool.
I mean, I don't know how, but yeah.
I love that.
Okay, dude, honestly, this episode was so sick, man. This was a lose track of time in the
Yes.
convo for me, man. So awesome. We covered the unconscious mind, the hero journey, and the shadow. Dude, there's some really potent stuff in this episode, man.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hella pumped for people to see this.
Yes.
And dude, I've got a lot of content to post now, so I'm happy.
Let's go.
I could make like definitely 4 videos out of this, probably 5, honestly.
How long is it though?
It's
like 2 hours?
it's 2.5 hours, I think, roughly.
That's solid.
Niek,
Yes.
thanks so much, dude, for helping out with this. So really,
Dude, it's my pleasure. I love this.
Dude, so it feels so good. Oh man, just articulating these things, because this is like this is more intellectually difficult. These topics, they're really like formulating them accurately requires more. It's more tricky. But if we just sum up, I think like the key takeaway from this discussion is listen to your unconscious, listen to what your body feels or what it's trying to tell you, and focus on your projections, on your shadow. The shadow is the first step to integrating the unconscious, which is Carl Jung called the process of individuation, which he also deemed to be the most valuable thing in life. The most valuable thing you can do in life is to individuate yourself. So sick. Is there anything else you want to say?
Amen.
Yes. Amen. Precisely. Okay, so thanks everybody for watching. I hope you could learn something. Dude, I'm just so pumped for the future, man. This is so sick, man. Oh, this is so awesome. Okay, everybody, thanks for watching. Goodbye.